Hello, I'm Will and this is Mike with Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And in this video we'll be looking at issue 39 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol magazine, which came with 5 Wraithguard models for the Aeldari Combat Patrol. These are the bonus unit for that Combat Patrol that only comes with the magazine. And we also got some more data cards and terrain cards for our collection. So we'll be looking at the build and painting guides for the Wraithguard, and then they'll have a special scenario where they need to rescue an Aeldari patrol. Having a look through the issue, we've got the build guide. The Wraithguard go together very easily. There aren't that many parts to each one. This kit does also make an alternate unit called Wraith Blades, which are a melee-oriented version, so there will be some parts left over. And the Wraithguard themselves also have a different weapon option, so you want to go with the ones shown in the pictures here if you are making the Combat Patrol loadout. The arms you will have to hold in place to make sure the glue dries properly, because they are quite heavy parts, so they will droop if the glue isn't set enough when you let go. It does tell you to build them with the cloth tabards and without the crests on their helmets. Those are generally intended for the Wraith Blades, but you could use them if you wanted to make your Wraithguard look a bit different. The veins on the back are all interchangeable as well. And then once you've built them, you can get onto painting. So for our Samhan colour scheme that the magazine instructs us with, we start with an all-over base coat of Mephiston red, then Abaddon black for their guns and the hoses, and the joints of the limbs and vents and things like that, as well as the underside of the head. And then the faceplate is painted with Corax white. There's a bit of Retributor armour for the runes on their chests, and then painting their tabards with Screamer pink. And then we're on to shading, where we've got Agrax Earthshade for all the red parts, Non-Oil for the tabards, and Reikland Flush Shade for the gold. And that's it, as it says work in progress up to this point. And then we just have their collection article. The Wraithguard are Wraithbone constructs like the Wraithlord, piloted by the souls of dead Aeldari, who are called back to serve due to the dwindling numbers of their species. They're extremely tough, but sometimes get a little bit confused on the battlefield because they don't see the world as the living do, and have to be guided by Aeldari Psykers. As usual, you can roll for their background and record their deeds when you've built, painted and played with them. And we just have their data sheet, which Mike will show us in a moment, as well as some new rules before we get into our game.
So before we get to today's game, we can have a look at the datasheet for our new Wraithguard. So they've got 6-inch movement, toughness 6, a 2+ save, 3 wounds. Only a leadership of 8 though, compared to the other Aeldari. An OC of 1. They're armed with Wraith Cannons, which have an 18-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on a 4, strength 14, AP +4, D6 +1 damage. And they have close combat weapons in melee, which are 3 attacks, hitting on 4, strength 5, AP 0, 1 damage. And they don't have the Strands of Fate rule, and their ability, Wraith Construct, means you cannot target them with stratagems as well. And they have an infantry keyword. And if you want to use them in the Aeldari Space Marines Combat Patrol, it says here, obviously it's just the Aeldari Combat Patrol, you can remove the Wraithlord and replace it with the Wraithguard instead. And then we have some more of the core rules, this time covering strategic reserves. So I don't think you can normally use strategic reserves in Combat Patrol because there's no points limit, but there are some units that allow you to put them into strategic reserves during the game, like the Teeming Brood stratagem that you put a termagant unit in reserves. Is useful to know. Essentially, strategic reserves are a special type of reserve to let you put units into reserves that don't normally have rules that allow them to be put in reserve. And strategic reserves are reserves, but not all reserves are strategic reserves. So the rules for strategic reserves do not apply to units that are in reserves due to a rule like Deep Strike. So normally you can put units in strategic reserves up to a certain points limit, which is 25% of your army's total. And when a unit arrives from strategic reserves, it arrives in the reinforcement step of your movement phase, similar to units that arrive from Deep Strike. And when you set a unit up from strategic reserves, during the second battle round, it can be set up wholly within 6 inches of any battlefield edge, but not in the enemy deployment zone. And starting for the third battle round, strategic reserves units can arrive wholly within 6 inches of any battlefield edge. And in both cases, they cannot be set up within 9 of any enemy models. And then we have some rules for terrain. So obviously you want terrain on your battlefield just to make it more interesting and to block lines of sight. And most terrain follows the rules for determining visibility, which I think we've seen. But essentially, if you can't see the entirety of a model, they usually gain cover. Units that have cover are said to have the benefit of cover. Each time a ranged attack is allocated to a model that has the benefit of cover, they get +1 to their save rolls. Although this doesn't apply if they have a base save of 3+ or better, and the attack has an armor penetration of 0. And then we're going over the various types of terrain. I guess these can be considered a guideline. You can always sort of come up with your own if you're feeling inventive. So for craters and rubble, you can move over them normally, and normal visibility rules apply. And if an infantry model is wholly on top of the terrain feature, then they get the benefit of cover. So obviously if they're in the crater. Then we have barricades and fuel pipes, so models can move up and over and down this terrain feature, but cannot be set up or end any kind of move on top of them. Normal visibility rules will apply. Then there's some special rules for the engagement range. So in the charge phase, if an enemy unit is within an inch of the terrain feature, a charging unit on the opposite side can still make a charge move against the enemy unit, provided it ends the charge move as close as possible to the terrain feature and within 2 inches of the enemy unit. And then units are eligible to fight if they're within 2 inches of the target on the opposite side of the terrain feature. So you can't just stand behind it and be immune from melee. Infantry models gain cover from the terrain if they are wholly within 3 inches of it and not fully visible to every model in the attacking unit, and they gain the benefit of cover. And we have battlefield debris and statuary, so I think this represents larger pieces of terrain. So again, you can move up and over them, but you cannot be set up or end any kind of move on top of it. And then any model gains the benefit of cover if it is not fully visible to every model in the attacking unit because of the terrain feature. So you don't need to be within 3 inches of it, and it doesn't matter if you're infantry or not. Hills, industrial structures, sealed buildings and armoured containers work pretty much exactly the same way, but other terrain features can be set up on top of a hill, provided no parts of the terrain overhang the hill, and units on the hill can't have their bases overhang the lip of the hill as well. And next up is woods. Yes, sometimes there is actually living greenery in the 41st millennium. So when this terrain feature is set up, you have to agree on the footprint of it, because it's a piece of area terrain. If the woods have a base, then obviously that defines their footprint. It says it can move over, but I think moving through the terrain feature probably makes more sense than going up and down the trees. If a target model is behind some woods, it will gain the benefit of cover, even if it looks as though it's fully visible, because you just assume there's more branches and things blocking line of sight. But units that are within the woods will also count as having cover, even if it looks as though they should be fully visible. The exception to this is aircraft and towering units, because they're simply too big, and models that are wholly within the woods can see out of them as well. And finally we have ruins, which is another piece of area terrain like woods. You have to decide on their total footprint. They have a rule called plunging fire, where each time a model is wholly within the ruins and makes a ranged attack, if it is 6 inches or more vertically from ground level, and every model in the target unit is at ground level, you can improve the armor penetration of the attack by 1. Movement is a bit more complicated with ruins. Infantry and beasts can move through the terrain feature, the walls, floors, ceilings, and gantries and so on, as if they weren't there. Assume they can climb up or through things, so there's doors and things. And obviously any other models have to move around the walls, and you can't just move through them. Infantry, beasts and models with the fly keyword can be set up or end a move on any floor of the terrain feature, but if that level is not the ground floor, their bases aren't allowed to overhang. And visibility works similarly to woods, except you cannot see through or over it, so models on the other side of the ruins are completely invisible, and units that are within the ruin can see out normally. Units within the terrain always count as having the benefit of cover, even if it looks like they should be fully visible, because again, just assume there's things blocking the line of sight, and aircraft and towering models are the exception to these. So that does seem like a lot of terrain rules to remember, but we do have some tutorials on how to represent some of these terrain types with our terrain cards. So first up, we have a little table to use when you're setting up terrain as a D3 to roll what type of terrain you'll deploy randomly. And so we have battlefield debris and statuary, which I guess will be the things that would be blocking line of sight, so like the fallen cargo container, the big tyrannid growths and that pile of barrels and so forth. Normal visibility rules apply, so I think we'll just say they'll block line of sight entirely. I guess we're going to assume that they're infinitely tall, which I guess would mean you can't move over them in our case, but you can make your own decisions. And you get cover if you're obscured by them, no matter how far away you are. And we've got some craters and rubble, which we actually got a couple of with our new terrain cards that came with this issue, so you can move through them as normal. Visibility rules will apply. I think they basically just won't block line of sight, but if you're an infantry model and you're wholly within the terrain feature, you get cover. And barricades and fuel pipes, which will be the stacks of boxes and things we've been using. I think we'll stick with the 3 inches up and down that we've had before, and obviously they'll block line of sight a little bit, but not totally. And if you're infantry and wholly within 3 inches of the terrain feature, you'll get cover, and you can fight over them, potentially. And then today's game is Ghost Vanguard, or Chaotic Ambush if you read the first sentence below the title, where a group of Chaos Space Marines have come across an Eldari scouting party. So for the Eldari we'll have 5 Wraithguard, 10 Guardian Defenders with a heavy weapon platform, 3 Rin Riders and a Farseer, while the Chaos Space Marines get 10 Legionaries, 5 Havocs and the Dark Apostle with his 2 little friends. We've got 2 battle mats. The Chaos Space Marine player deploys all their units in their deployment zone, the bottom left of the right hand half. The Eldari player places the Wraithguard in Eldari deployment zone 1 in the top left. The remaining units resist the other 2 Eldari deployment zones, but there are only 2 Eldari deployment zones, so you can split your forces how you like. And there are 3 objectives, 1, 2 and 3, on the right hand side of the board. And there's also a little zone to deploy some terrain, which I guess we'll do randomly as well. Then at the end of each player's command phase you score victory points as follows. If you control 1 objective you score 5, if you control more than your opponent you score 5, and whoever has the most victory points at the end of the 5th battle round is the winner. There's no playthrough snippets to look at for this game, so we'll just have to get straight into it. But first we have the victory outcomes or the draw outcomes, so you can have a look at those and decide who you want to root for. So here we are set up. We've got 2 bits of terrain, we've got some debris and one of our new craters. Not really sure how much effect it's going to have on the game, but it's nice to have it nonetheless. I'll be playing the Chaos Space Marines and I've deployed the Havocs down by Objective 1. I've split the Legionaries into 2 units, so the Apostle is with the more melee oriented ones, plus the Melter Gun, while the ones with bolt guns and the Heavy Bolter are going to be off and doing their own thing. You can see the Eldari deployment in their top right deployment zone.
So I was able to split my units however I want, but I put 2 units on this side because then I can hold 2 objectives, and you can score in the first turn in this game. We've also decided that the Eldari will go first, even though the mission doesn't specify, because otherwise it would just be a slaughter, because you can see how close they start. So we've got the Farseer is just about on Objective 2, and he's leading the Guardians, and then a single unit of Wind Riders who have 1 scatter laser on Objective 3.
And over on the left we can see our new Wraith Guard.
They're just deployed as close as they can get.
Yeah, a review of the battlefield again. So we head into Eldari turn 1.
So in my command phase I did gain 10 victory points because again the scenario doesn't specify that you have to wait until turn 2 to score, and I did hold 2 objectives. I failed to get Fortune off unfortunately, and then the Wraith Guard have just plodded forward so they can get in range. The Wind Riders have flown over to be on Objective 1, probably going to charge the Havocs to be annoying, and the Guardians just shuffled a bit to get some more of the Guardian Defenders on Objective 2. Then we go to the shooting phase. I'm going to do the Guardians, and they're going to shoot the Dark Apostles unit of Chaos Legionaries in the front. I'll start with Eldritch Storm. It's a blast weapon, so I'll get an extra shot. D6 plus 1 is 6. Hitting on 3s. 4 hits, wounding on 3s. Oh, 1 at -2.
I'll take it one of the Dark Disciples, because even though they're part of the Apostles unit normally, they don't have the character keyword, so I think I can take wounds off them. So I've got a 4+ invulnerable save, which I failed, so that's 1 Dark Disciple dead.
Then we have 20 shots from Shuriken Catapults, hitting on 3s. Only 9 hits, but winning on 4s. Get them all in the box. 4 wounds.
Yeah, so it's going to be a 4+ save for both Dark Disciple and Marines, but you know, we'll see how many the Dark Disciple can tank. Tanked 1. There's 2. Third one kills him. And then on a Marine with a 4+, takes a wound.
Singing Spear hits on a 2, and wounds on a 3. Or a 2 actually, because it's strength 9. And it did wound.
3+ save. Ooh, failed. Kills the Melter Gun man who is wounded.
And 2 shots from the Star Cannon, which both hit, and they wound on 2s as well, strength 8. Only 1.
6+ save. Ooh, made it.
So I'll do the Wraith Guard next. They're also going to shoot at the same unit. Their Wraith Cannons have 1 shot each, and they only hit on 4s because they are Wraith Constructs. So they can manage to get 3 hits though. I can't reroll any of this because they can't have stratagems used on them. And they win on 2s because they're strength 14. So they all wound and they're -4. So,
yeah, so no save. I think it's D6 plus 1 damage, so it's going to be 3 dead. That just leaves the Dark Apostle and the Aspiring Champion.
So I've just got the Wind Riders left to do, and they're going to shoot at the Havocs. So I'll do the Scatter Laser. We've got 6 shots hitting on 3s, but 4 rerolls because they're the closest unit and they are on the objective. So they all hit. And winning on 3s because it's, or 4s actually, because it's strength 5, and that was 5 wounds, so no AP.
3+ saves. Failed 2. I'm going to reroll one to try and keep Havoc alive. Nope. Goodbye, Aspiring Champion.
And the Shuriken Catapults that have 3s as well to hit, and 1 miss even with a reroll, and then winning on 5s, but again rerolling because of Twin Linked. So only 1 wound at -1.
4+ save. Made that one.
Finally, the Wind Riders will charge into the Havocs. And they meld a 5, which is enough. So they make that charge obviously, and then they have 9 attacks that hit on 3s. 7 hits winning on 5s. 1.
With a 3+. Oh, failed. Take a wound. And we've got 12 attacks back from the Havocs. Right, hitting on 3s. 7 hits, wounding on 4s. 2 wounds.
With a 4+ save, 3+ save rather. I'll take a damage on a bike because we don't lose 1 from that.
And there's the state of the board at the end of Eldari turn 1. And we'll head into Chaos turn 1. So I will gain 5 victory points because I hold Objective 1. Then I have to make a battle shock test for the Dark Apostle and the Aspiring Champion. They're leadership 5. So they're okay. So in my movement phase, the Dark Apostle and the Aspiring Champion are moving up.
But I will spend a command point for the Guardians to Overwatch. Do all their shots, and all going to be hitting on 6s. We'll start with the Star Cannon. Nope. The Eldritch Storm gets 1 shot, which missed. Singing Spear from the Farseer also missed. And then 20 shots from the Guardians, all hitting on 6s. Well, there are 3 in there. Winning on 4s. 2 wounds.
2 4+ saves. Made 1. Aspiring Champion takes a wound. Then down here, the Havocs are going to fall back towards Objective 3, and then the other unit of Chaos Legionaries is moving towards the Wind Riders to try and thin them out. And shooting phase, I'll start with those legionaries and they're just going to shoot everything at the Wind Riders. So we've got 8 shots from bolt guns on 3s, 5 hits wounding on 4s, getting 2.
3s to save, made them.
And 3 shots from the heavy bolter, hitting on 4s because they moved, 6s are sustained. Well, they all hit. Strength 5, so 3s, 2 wounds at -1.
4s. Oh, mate.
Now, I've got some pistol shots on the Guardians from the Aspirine Champion and the Dark Apostle. So the Champion, not overcharging his plasma pistol, hits, wounds on a 2. It does, it's -2.
So a 6 plus save. Oh.
And then a bolt pistol shot that hits and doesn't wound. On to the charge phase, where the Legionaries will charge the Wind Riders and the Dark Apostle and the Aspirine Champion will charge the Guardians. So Legionaries are in, Dark Apostle definitely in with an 11. So the Legionaries down here charging, and I can get all of the bikes into base contact so that they can't pile in and bring the Havocs back into melee, and I'll pick them to fight first. 15 attacks from the Legionaries on 3s, 8 hits wounding on 4s, 5 wounds on the Wind Rider.
5 3 plus saves, failed 2, so 1 will die and another takes a wound.
And up at the top, I could spend a command point to do Heroic Challenge and try and kill the Farseer, but I think we're better off just trying to mulch all the Guardians. So we've got 4 attacks from the Aspirine Champion with his Accursed Axe on 3s, 3, wounding on 2s thanks to the Dark Apostle, 3 wounds at -2.
6s. Nope, 3 Guardians dead.
And 5 attacks from the Apostle on 2s, they will hit, and again wounding on 2s. They will wound at -1.
5s. Made 2, another 3 dead. So only leaving 4 Guardians left alive, and then I'll fight back with them first. So I'll do the Guardians and the heavy weapon platform first. They only have 1 attack each, but I might be able to kill that remaining Space Marine. Get 4 hits, wounding on 5s though. Nope, nothing. So the Farseer is going to have to do the job with 2 attacks on 2s, but also winning on 5s. 1 wound.
3 plus, saved.
And then I just have 2 Wind Riders who can't pile in because they're in base contact. 6 attacks. They all miss. Impressive.
And so here's the board state at the end of Chaos Marines turn 1, and we'll head into Eldari turn 2.
I didn't need to take a battle test for the Guardians, they're still at 6 models, which is half strength from what they started with, and then I succeeded on Fortune this turn, which is going on the Guardians.
Also the Eldari gained 5 victory points because they held 1 objective.
And then I've moved the Wraith Guard up in the movement phase.
Yeah, and I'm going to Overwatch with the Havocs. Havocs might do something. Las Cannon hits on a 6. Ooh, nope. Crack Missile? Nope. Heavy Bolter? Nope. And the Chain Cannon? Nothing at all.
And then for other movement, the Guardians have just fallen back, but they're staying on the objective, and the 2 Wind Riders have flown over to Objective 3. So then we're on to the shooting phase, where the Wraith Guard are the only unit that can shoot, and they're going to shoot the Havocs. So they have 5 shots hitting on 4s. Oh, they're doing well. 4 hits winning on 2s. 4 wounds, and -4s.
They're all dead.
Well, that was successful, but that is the end of my turn because everything else fell back.
Yeah, so we'll be on to Chaos turn 2. So I'll gain 5 victory points and go up to 10 for holding Objective 1. I have to make a Battle Shock test for the Dark Apostle and his friend, and they're okay. I'm not going to move, because if I move I can get Overwatched. Also, if I don't move, the Heavy Bolter hits on a 3 for my Legionaries, who are going to shoot at the Wind Riders. We've got 8 shots from Bolters on 3s, 6 hits wounding on 4s, 1.
1 3 plus. Oh, I did fail that though. I'll spend a command point and try and reroll that because the hand might waste a Heavy Bolter shot, which is technically 2 damage. I succeeded.
And then the Heavy Bolter hits on 3, 6s are sustained. Whoa, we got a sustained, so we got 3 hits. Wounding on 3s, 3 at -1.
Oh, 4s. Oh.
Never mind then. And then the Champion and the Apostle. Bolt pistol shot from the Apostle. Hits, wounds on a 4. It does. No AP.
3 again. Saved.
No, sorry, it's shooting at the Guardians, but yeah, still rolled a 6. And the Plasma Pistol, not supercharged, hits. Doesn't wound. And my only charge is going to be the Apostle and his friend.
Okay, although I will Overwatch them with the Guardians, so they are in.
Yeah.
But when they declare the charge before they move, I get to Overwatch. So only 4 Guardians left with 6s to hit with their catapults. We've got 1. 4 to wound. Nope. Star Cannon. 6s. Nope. Eldritch Storm. 4 shots. Nope. And the Singing Spear. No.
So after a hail of Shuriken fire, the 2 Marines get in. 4 attacks from the Champion on 3s, they all hit. He's going to be wounded on 3s because the +1 from the Apostle cancels out Fortune.
4 wounds, 6s to save. Oh no, he kills the remaining 4 Guardians. Actually, you know what? We'll use 2 of those to take out the platform and lose 2 Guardians.
Apostle on 2s, they all hit. Still wounded on 2s. They all wound at -1.
So the Guardians will be on 5s, and there are 2 of them left. So they're both dead, and then the Farseer is going to take 3 hits that will wound on. That will be on 4 plus invulnerables. He fails 2. I think I'll re-roll. Fails 2, but they're 2 each, so that's enough to kill the Farseer because he only has 4 wounds.
So you've got the state of the board at the end of battle round 2. On to Eldari, turn 3.
So I do still gain 5 because the Wind Riders held objective 3, and then the Wraith Guard have moved towards Dark Apostle, and the Wind Riders have moved away from objective 3.
Yeah, but when the Wind Riders start their move, I'll overwatch them with the Marines. 8 bolter shots on 6s. Woohoo! 6 hits. 4s. 3 wounds.
Well, 3 saves. Oh, get one box. Well, I saved those, at least.
And the heavy bolter missed.
So then on to my shooting phase. The Wraith Guard are going to shoot at the Legionaries on objective 1.
And you know what? I'm going to spend a command point for go to ground.
So 5 shots on 4s. No, only 2 hits this time. 2's to wound, 2.
So we've got a 6+ save. No.
Still kills 2.
Yeah.
And the Wind Riders can shoot this turn. They're going to go for the Dark Apostle and Friend because they're the closest unit on an objective, and I'll see if I can get rid of that 1 wound Chaos Marine. And these are both Shuriken Catapult ones. I actually killed off the Scatter Laser, so they can reroll because it's the closest unit on an objective. And we wound on 4s rerolling because of Twin Linked. 3 wounds at -1.
It's going to be 4s either way. You know what? I'll do it individually just in case. 4, dead. I'll re-roll it. Alive, dead. And so it's just the Dark Apostle, who's okay.
That brings us to the charge phase. The Wraith are going to charge the Dark Apostle because, especially now that he's not leading a unit anymore and doesn't get the +1 to wound, I don't think he's going to kill them anytime soon, so they might be able to take objective 2 back. They do need to roll something. 5 is probably enough.
Yeah, I reckon that's okay.
So after the charge and then a pile in, they can surround the Dark Apostle. And they actually have quite a lot of attacks, 3 each, so 15 attacks, but they only hit on 4s. And their strength 5, so 3 to wound. With 8 hits, that will be 5 wounds, no AP.
Fine, 3+ saves. Oh, he's dead. Oh well. But I think we can call the game there, because the Eldari have 2 units to my 1, and I might kill the Wind Riders, but the Eldari have a lead over me, so if we just sit here and shoot at each other, I think the Wraith Guard would win that as well. So that'll be an Eldari victory. We'll recap that for you now. So that was the game for issue 39 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol magazine. How do you think that went?
Well, I think the intention of the scenario was that the Wraith Guard sort of come to the rescue, and they kind of did. I think that many Chaos Marines is enough to overwhelm 10 Guardians and 3 Wind Riders. Well, they obviously were, they managed it. If I hadn't had the Wraith Guard, it would have all gone horribly wrong.
Well, perhaps a bit of a Pyrrhic victory considering they lost the Farseer, but...
Yes, that's true. Even the Dark Apostle and 1 aspiring champion can take out an entire unit.
Yeah, and I think if I'd gone first with the Chaos, I don't think it would have been very interesting. I would have just charged the Guardians with a 5-man unit of Marines and chop them all up.
Yeah, and with our deployment zones essentially touching, unless I deployed everything right in the corner, then you have a negligible charge. Even then, it would still not be very long. I think charging the Havocs was the right decision with the Wind Riders in the first turn, because I really didn't want them to be shooting at anything. We did have a lot of Overwatch used in this game to essentially no effect. I think Overwatch in total did 1 wound to a Chaos Space Marine, but you can see that just rolling a 6 with a powerful weapon can actually have quite a big impact, especially in a smaller game.
Yeah, and I guess it probably is a good showcase of the Wraith Guard compared to the Wraith Lord, because I think the Wraith Lord probably wouldn't have had as much of an impact. It would have gotten into melee sooner, but its shooting wouldn't have deleted the Havocs.
Yeah, the Wraith Guard shooting was actually quite good, considering what we know about things that hit on 4s. They had quite a good game. But yeah, they're certainly good against Space Marine type armies and things with a lot of wounds, because those Wraith Cannons are insanely powerful. They have a bit more OC than the Wraith Lord, but obviously it can be chipped away by losing models, whereas the Wraith Lord obviously is always 3 OC.
Yeah, also you can't use stratagems on them, so there's no rerolls, whereas you can with the Wraith Lord.
Yeah, the Wraith Lord still doesn't get Strands of Fate, but at least you can re-roll hits, particularly with the Bright Lance or in melee. That can be quite important.
Yeah, I think perhaps they're less flexible. They can get into melee things and tie them up, but they're not going to kill them, I don't think. I suppose Wraith Guard do have a fairly short range, but in Combat Patrol that's not such an issue. In larger games, on a board that would be twice the size you saw us playing today, Wraith Guard do have a fairly short range, although they're generally tough enough to get into range of what you want to use them on. They're not slow, they're just slow by Eldari standards.
Yeah, and they will get stratagems that make things be able to move, but obviously you can't use any of them on the Wraith Guard. I think with the option to swap out for the Wraith Lord, you might see me use the Wraith Guard more often against, say, the Space Marines, or possibly even Chaos, because they're just as good at dealing with a big, tough thing than the Wraith Lord is. They just deal with it in a slightly different way, but they're also better against against shooting marine type targets. And there are a couple of oddities with their datasheet compared to the other ones. They have a leadership of 8+, whereas the rest of the Eldari have 6+, including the Wraith Lord, and they're also toughness 6. I think that's because they've taken this datasheet from the Eldari Codex book, where they're toughness 6, and they have a rule in the full rules where if they're near a Eldari Psyker model, their leadership is boosted to 6+. But in the Combat Patrol, the Wraith Lord just doesn't have that and has 6+ leadership all the time, but they didn't do that for the Wraith Guard, so they are actually a little bit unreliable if you manage to have something to make them take a battle shock test, like Shadow in the Warp, for example. And they are great models. I mean, they're just a smaller version of the Wraith Lord with a bit less ornamentation, which is exactly what they should be, really. They haven't changed in design all that much for about 30 years in the Eldari range. The weird elongated blank heads are a little bit sort of unsettling, I suppose, and they're quite different from the other units in the Eldari list. But obviously they're still quite elegant. They're not big and chunky, they do fit the aesthetic, but they're a kind of different part of the range, which I think was pretty good.
And obviously it's very good value for money getting 5 of them in one issue. Don't know how much they are normally.
They're £40 for 5, so you're actually getting them for like a quarter of the price like this. However, good luck getting one, because I think a lot of people who tried to get one in the shops when it came out in the UK couldn't, because everybody had done that. Sometimes they have supply issues for subscribers with popular issues. I don't know if they had it for this one, but yeah, I think getting hold of them was quite tricky. They also make Wraith Blades as well, so if you did want ones to bulk up your army and didn't want to make the Wraith Guard, they also come with an alternate weapon option as well, the D-Scythe, which is, I think it's a torrent weapon. So again, just good value for buying Wraith Guard in general, even if you're not making them for the Combat Patrol.
But anyway, I don't think there's too much more to say about this game or this issue, so as always, if you like this content, do like and subscribe and leave any comments. We've been the Tidbit Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.